by Retire Chicago. Tune in Saturday mornings at 8 to Retire Chicago with John McNamara of McNamara Capital.
If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Speaking of Trump and impeachment and Ukraine and the transcript of the phone call that's going to be released today and the whistleblower complaint that will be turned over to congressional intel committees. Hey, remember that time when 3 Democrat U.S. senators wrote to the Ukrainian inspector general demanding they investigate Trump?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, remember that? Oh, remember when Dick Durbin, our very own Secretary Durbin, Pat Leahy and Robert Menendez back on May 4th of last year wrote to Yuri Lutsenko, "Dear Mr. Prosecutor General, we're writing to express great concern about reports that your office has taken steps to impede cooperation with the investigation of United States Special Counsel Robert Mueller," and so on and so forth, and questions. And they have 3 questions that they want answered. So I'm sorry, 3 Democrat senators interceding on behalf of the Mueller investigation and trying to pressure, I'm using that word, the magic word, pressure the Ukrainian prosecutor general to investigate Trump. So are we to impeach Pat Leahy, Bob Menendez, and Dick Durbin? I mean, I'm all for that, just as a matter of principle. But I mean, on this basis? Isn't that fascinating? Should be an interesting impeachment gambit that Pelosi has set the House upon. Impeachment or bust? Or impeachment and bust in 2020 for congressional Democrats and whoever the socialists they nominate to be their presidential standard bearer. President Trump had other things to do yesterday in addition to respond to the frenzy on the Hill. One of them was to address the UN General Assembly, and he had a general message about putting your country's interests first. The future belongs to sovereign nations, not world government and globalists, he essentially said. But he also had specific messages. Earlier in the show, we provided the specific messages he delivered between the eyes of the Iranian delegation, of the Venezuelan delegation. He also had a very specific message for China and a specific example of the problem he has with China's trade policies.
Not only has China declined to adopt promised reforms, it has embraced an economic model dependent on massive market barriers, heavy state subsidies, currency manipulation, product dumping, forced technology transfers, and the theft of intellectual property, and also trade secrets on a grand scale. As just one example, I recently met the CEO of a terrific American company, Micron Technology, at the White House. Micron produces memory chips used in countless electronics. To advance the Chinese government's 5-year economic plan, a company owned by the Chinese state allegedly stole Micron's designs, valued at up to $8.7 billion. Soon, the Chinese company obtains patents for nearly an identical product, and Micron was banned from selling its own goods in China. But we are seeking justice. The United States lost 60,000 factories after China entered the WTO. This is happening to other countries all over the globe. The World Trade Organization needs drastic change. The second largest economy in the world should not be permitted to declare itself a developing country in order to game the system at others' expense. Hopefully, we can reach an agreement that will be beneficial for both countries. But as I have made very clear, I will not accept a bad deal for the American people.
For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by our friend Steve Moore, economist, Wall Street Journal columnist, author of Trumponomics, Inside the America First Plan to Revive Our Economy. Steve, did Trump strike the right notes with respect to China, essentially suggesting that the WTO should get its act together and sanction China?
Well, good morning, Dan. And by the way, I rest my case. You know, you and I have been having this argument for the last year or so on this show, and I've been taking Trump's side. And I thought that was a great passage from Trump. I agreed with just about everything he said there. I mean, China does cheat. They do steal. They are. We do continue to treat them like they're a developing country and they're the second largest economy in the world. And we're in an abusive relationship, and it has to change. And so I thought he did a very nice job there. Thank you for taking my side in this debate.
Well,
yeah, but when is change going to come, and how is that going to be facilitated?
Well, okay, but look, I mean, he's right about the WTO. The WTO is the most feckless organization ever. I mean, I talked to some of my free trade friends at Cato and other places, and they say, oh, my gosh, all we have to do is take our case to the WTO. I'm like, come on. I mean, if the WTO had any teeth and any backbone, China would have been evicted from the WTO 10 years ago. I mean, China cheats on every and violates every aspect of WTO trading rules. So, and I'm with Trump. I mean, the one thing I disagree with him a little bit about in that passage was, I'm in favor of any kind of decent deal that he can get right now because this is going to be an important election, and I don't want to see a socialist or a Stalinist elected president. And so I do think, once he can get some kind of deal done with China, the economy is going to explode. It's the only thing that's holding back this incredible economy. And let me just say one quick other thing. You started this conversation by talking about Ukraine and the impeachment. Look, if Democrats want to get rid of Donald Trump, there's a very easy way to do that, right? In a little over 12 months, they can do that at the ballot box. But they have no confidence they can beat him because they lost to him the last time. And so they want to try to evict him from office through an impeachment hearing. Why not just beat him? And the answer is because they know they can't beat him. And certainly none of those fools on the stage that they've got right now can beat Trump. And by the way, I lived through the Clinton impeachment, and I always thought it was a mistake. And one of the reasons it never went anywhere is people liked the way the economy was going under Clinton, and so they said, we don't want to get rid of this guy. And I think that's going to be the same thing with Trump.
Well, the other thing it does too is there's an opportunity cost to be paid if Pelosi pursues impeachment and she threw the gauntlet down. She almost has to now. Then that sidelines everything else. Then you're not going to get you're not going to get a trade deal, U.S. Canada trade deal approved. You're not going to move on any other issue, and that's not perhaps going to set well with the electorate if the Republicans play it right.
Well, but you're exactly right about that. But look, the Democrats don't have an agenda anyway. I mean, there's nothing that they want to pass. There's nothing. They should pass the USMCA. I mean, that is the single best step we could take right now in terms of our trade war with China, is to unify North America against the villainous Chinese. But I think it's 50-50 at best that Nancy Pelosi is even going to bring that to a vote. But, I listened to her agenda. I listened to the agenda of Joe Biden. I listened to the agenda of, Elizabeth Warren. I can't think of a single thing that they have proposed in the last 2 years that is good for jobs, good for the economy, good for, keeping this economy booming. So they don't want to talk about these things because they're loser issues for them.
Well, why do you think President Trump withheld aid from Ukraine?
Well, why do I think?
Yeah, why did President Trump withhold aid from Ukraine? Because he gave a few different answers yesterday.
Look, that's a great question, Amy, and I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And look, I'm not defending Trump on this. I did think it smells bad. And I think, is it today that when are they going to release the transcript?
Well, that's what I read today, but we don't know exactly what time. But
I thought they said sometime in the very. Look, I think Trump is. I agree with the Wall Street Journal's editorial yesterday. He's going to have to release that transcript, and the American people will decide for themselves from that transcript whether they think this was some kind of a. It smells bad to me. I can't defend that. I mean, I think that it could be an abuse of power. I don't know. I haven't heard the transcript, and we'll see. But I think that the Democrats are certainly rushing to judgment here when they don't even know what was said in the conversation.
And they're also going to release the whistleblower complaint today, the White House is.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, I also agree with the Wall Street Journal editorial on this as well, that, do we really want the, operatives in the government who are basically revealing private conversations the president has with foreign leaders? I mean, that's as they said, would we want a whistleblower to, record the conversations that John F. Kennedy was having with Khrushchev during the, Cuban Missile Crisis? I mean, there has to be a way the president can have some privacy. And I don't think that conversation and this revelation is protected by the Whistleblower Act, by the way.
Let's get back to economics, since you're an economist. Finland. This is such a fascinating case study. I wish these stories would get more attention in America. Finland does not have a nationally appointed minimum wage. Instead, the country has practiced collective bargaining since the 70s. About 90% of the workforce is involved in a collective bargaining unit. A business group has proposed a national minimum wage. Labor in Finland is opposed to a minimum wage because the labor organizations say a set minimum wage would enforce a price floor. They say essentially that would provide downward pressure on wages that were otherwise finally negotiating in an adversarial process with management, trade unions and management, collective bargaining situation. Labor in Finland doesn't want a minimum wage, and yet everybody here, Republicans conceded, even though they know it's bad economics, and of course the socialists think they're being compassionate by ever trying to increase it.
Well, my view on the minimum wage. I think it is a terrible policy. I don't think the government should ever set prices or wages in any industry, and I think it does cost jobs. But I also believe, Dan and Amy, and I wonder what you think about this, I'm very much in favor of allowing unions to exist and allowing unions to band together, represent workers. The only objection I have to unions, other than the corruption, and we're seeing a lot of corruption from the union bosses, is the fact that the unions want to force people to join the union. And why is it that here we are in the year 2019 and Illinois still forces its workers to join a union against their will? That is a violation of their economic rights and their human rights. And their constitutional rights. You should never ever be able to force somebody to join an organization they don't want to join.
He is Steve Moore, economist, Wall Street Journal columnist, author of Trumponomics, Inside the America First Plan to Revive Our Economy. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Have a great week, guys.
Take care.
Thanks. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Balance of nature. Changing the world, one life at a time.
One thing that is phenomenal, I had